All right. We are here with another Conscious Builder live, and today we have Linney on with us. Austin, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Mr. Gray.
Austin is a former service industry veteran of 20 plus years turned serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, mindset, and business coach. And he is also the host of the weekly podcast, Construct Your Life, which I just found out our episode will go live on his podcast next week. So we'll send out links for that as well. And so much to talk about when we were on your podcast. We got into all sorts of stuff, but now we get to flip it around and I get to put the questions to you now. So I'm excited for this. Let's start with maybe just paint. I'm sure you've done this a lot. So paint a little bit of picture of who Austin is and where you came from. I know I did a quick little intro there, but I know there's so much more to the story.
Yeah. And I'm going to live off my brother, Brad Johnson, who said, I am not my accomplishments. I am my failures. So I grew up, my dad is a doctor in Houston, a dentist for 40 years. What you would say the typical country club, privileged white kid next to NBA players. So life should have been great, but I was not challenged in school. I have a photographic memory, so school wasn't really my bag. But long story short, I moved to Beaumont, Texas, which is the country. It's the middle of nowhere. When I was 17 and finished out high school out there because I was so much a problem in school and just not really digging that school. And what proceeded was the restaurant business I was in for 20 plus years. And then obviously, if you are familiar with the restaurant business, the drugs tend to run rampant, especially back in the day when I started. So, started with drinking, cocaine use, and then eventually led up to meth addiction, which was not a great addiction whatsoever. Lost a bunch of weight, stayed up for too long. Eventually my parents got fed up of all that and I was homeless for a little while, slept in a friend's closet, no kidding, 50 square feet. I had a single bed and a fan underneath the stairs for like 3 months. I lived off $40 a month in food and laid brick and tile in July in Texas, if you could wrap your head around the 105 weather. So, to go from a country club to living in a closet, you would have think that would have been my rock bottom. That was one of them. And then proceeded to get clean from the drugs, and then proceeded to replace that with alcohol. Was a functioning alcoholic for a good part of my life for about 20 years to about a year and a half ago. When I made a conscious decision that alcohol was not serving me anymore. I had a mentor ask me if this was the one thing holding me back, and I believed it was. And so when I joined M1 Mastermind, I got around other people that didn't drink. That was the first time in my life to be around successful entrepreneurs that didn't drink. It was possible. I didn't even know it was a thing when I came from the world I did, right? And almost created that space that it was okay. And proceeded, I was 247 pounds and about 34%, 35% body fat, and just not in a great place mentally. Was still getting all my work done, but just not really like leveling up, and proceeded to stop drinking and started working out and eating better. And it was a process. It's been a 2-year process, but now I'm happy to say that I am down 50 pounds, about 25% body fat down, or like 20% body fat down to like 198. And it's been a journey. I mean, to say the least. The business stuff is still a process, as always, as we talked about on your podcast. That, you start businesses, they don't work out, or they don't whatever. And that's kind of the journey that is an entrepreneur. And when you're changing your life as much as I was, you're actually pulling apart parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed anymore. So as much as you're trying to, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think that this is like, thanks for sharing all that and being so open, right? So I think a lot of people hide a lot of their stuff that's happened in the past. And I think it's it's obviously takes some courage to say that stuff out loud and share it. So thanks for doing that. And I think this is a good example, a really perfect example of you are who you surround yourself with, as well as like the power of environment, right? So willpower can only take us so far, right? You will become your environment. So if you're in the restaurant industry, you will become that environment. You're now with M1, that's how we met, right? You're in this environment, which is completely different, and you become that environment. Mm-hmm. And I always push on people like if you want to change something, like put yourself into a position where you're forced to change for the better. Like don't rely on your willpower, because something's going to happen. It's too hard to do that, right? But if you're forced to put a little bit of pressure on yourself, then magic can happen.
There's a misnomer, and I am the representative for the party for most of my life, that we are so damn stubborn that we can do everything on our own. And that's not the truth. If you meet a great entrepreneur, if you meet a whole life millionaire, I guarantee you he has an amazing wife at home. There's a joke around, like if you look around your 5 friends that you hang around the most, I guarantee you almost kind of drive the same car. And it's the truth. And I know that I say the statement offhand, but I want to drill down on it. I didn't know that you could be accomplished and not drink. That's a real fucking statement. But when you get in a business with 2 gentlemen who are recovering as well, and they're going, dude, if you've ever thought about it, just quit. What? That's an option? And then you start feeling good, and you're like, oh, this is like a superpower. And then you're like, and then you start like, and then you start, and dude, it's still I've got a long way to go, but the difference in the way I feel every day and the way I do now is it's not even close. I mean, I feel, yeah, go ahead.
Where have you put your attention? Like, obviously, because that's the thing with addiction. Like, addiction is like, that's where the focus is going. That's what you're putting your attention. So what have you replaced that? What have you made your new addiction these days?
Relentless pursuit of lifting other people up. And then the Ironmans, the cycling hit for me. I'll go on 50, 40, 60 mile rides, 30 mile rides. When I started not drinking, I was biking 20 miles a day, 6 days a week. I thought it was not a lot. And then I talked to a guy at a cycle shop, and he's like, dude, you're really putting in the time. And I was like, oh, okay. Apparently I just enjoyed it. And so that's where I found solace, and where I read books or I thought, and it's the truth. If you meet any people that have fought off addiction or are fighting off addiction, they're normally ultra runners, or they're normally like serial entrepreneurs, because, you said it on my show, like you will have 5 addictions your entire life. Make sure you pick them carefully.
Yeah. It's very true. So it's good to hear that now these things are empowering you, right? And it's like improving, I can tell, like just improving your life 10 times.
But I want to make something very clear. And it's what I told my coaching client this morning. And this is super important. This is a big point. When I post a photo of before and after, everybody sees the weight loss. But anybody that's a coach or anybody that's in my mastermind, you know what they say to me first thing? The look on your face is different. Mm-hmm. The look on your eye is different. And what they know is what I know. This wasn't an outside-in job. It was an inside-out job. The physical appearance is just a byproduct of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because our outer world is just a reflection of our inner world. And, let's get into the entrepreneurship side of this, because a lot of our viewers and listeners are entrepreneurs. A lot of the people who watch our YouTube channel, they're, young guys, construction guys wanting to get things going. And, when I started my business, I was just a young guy I was good at swinging a hammer and building stuff. And I quickly realized that it takes a lot more than being a good carpenter to run and grow a business. And that mindset is the biggest factor that I tell everybody about now. It's like, that's the thing that changed everything. When I started focusing on my own personal development, that's when things started to change. And that's when I was, that awareness is what has changed everything. It's not the mechanics, it's the psychology.
There is a comfort level that we reach. Like when I say in the service industry, and I don't have a problem saying it now because I'm not in it. I was top 1% of 1%. like as a bartender and a waiter. Like I made damn good money. And there is a comfort level where nobody questions your ability anymore. And you ride that comfort for so long because you don't want to be pressed. And when you step your toe in that entrepreneur world that you wanted so greatly, it's scary as shit. Because now you're back to like what we could classify as kindergarten when I was a master's degree in college. But what you're doing is you're refusing to trade your time for money anymore. And I'll just relate it to my experience. I know Airbnb. That's how I did. I do real estate investing too, but Airbnb was my shit. I traveled that way. We started with an air mattress and in the back room, started renting that out. I was like, wow, I can do this. This is the thing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. And then we got a day bed. Well, then we started renting out the day bed and the air mattress. So we're renting out the room. So the first year goes by, I rented out for like 5 months. I made like $8K. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Like, look, this is amazing. Like I've got this side business. So my wife at the time gets a job, moves to Houston. And I'm like, well, what if I rented out the whole house? Like, can you do that? I was like, I think you can do that. So I'm like, okay, I put the whole house up and I'm like, where am I going to sleep? Well, I just go sleep at my boy's apartment. He's got a second room in the back. I sleep on the floor on an air mattress, working like 80 hours a week and cleaning this Airbnb. Well, then I made like 16K and I was like, oh shit, this is like a thing. Like, so then I bought another house with a partner. That year we did 66,000 gross. And then I bought another house and we did 114,000 gross that year. And so you walk backwards into this business and you're just, as I would say, walking in a dark room looking for the light switch.
So what'd you do to get through? Because obviously as you're doing a lot of those things, like it wasn't easy, right? You're just figuring it out along the way. But what was it? What were you telling yourself or what were you doing to keep continuing forward? And I'm sure even now, we were talking before we hit record, you're now dealing with a different set of problems, right? So being an entrepreneur brings some interesting problems.
Here's what I think. I think in the beginning, I didn't know any better. So how would I even know? And I was doing everything. And when I mean everything, I'm working 60, 70 hours a week, cleaning the bathroom at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 10 o'clock at night, whenever I could, because I thought I was saving money, right? And I'm like, oh, you're doing it right. And then I got an M1. And then, and then I was still sending all the messages manually. I was still cleaning all the things. And a guy that had like 19 properties goes, what are you doing, bro? Like, here's $10 a month, gets you automated messages. You don't have to do those anymore. I met this guy. I'm dead serious. And I put it in my business the next day and I go, well, I could run 30 properties with just that tool. So that one person leveled me up that much. Then I got a little coaching from Matty A. And I was like, dude, I'm saving money. I'm doing all this work myself. So he made me price out all the cleaning fees for the year and how much money I was saving myself per hour, what I was getting paid for myself. And it came out to $2.10. And I think I threw up on the call or felt like I needed to, because that's when you're working harder, not smarter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so right. And that came from an investment too. So I think one of the things that, like, I didn't go to university or college. Like, I'm a licensed carpenter by trade. I've kind of learned, because similar to you, is like, I just didn't like school. You sounded like you weren't challenged by school. I just wasn't a fan of sitting in a classroom and learning. I learned better by taking action and working with my hands. Mm-hmm. And realizing that trying to do everything myself is kind of what I was doing. Right. But it takes time, but not doing all of that. I also realized that there's a better way to learn. So I've spent more on like personal development, M1, Tony Robbins events, all sorts of other events. I've spent more on like private investment club I'm a part of, all these clubs that I'm in that really learn. They're just educational avenues than any other person has probably spent on like university or college. Maybe not some doctors, I don't know what they're spending, but the amount of money that I've basically invested in myself has paid back 10x, right? It's continuing to, and it's always paying back.
I can't wrap the whole number around what I spent on M1, but I would say that a majority of the people that I speak to or have been in business with are from that investment. Like, and that's a true statement. Like, I met like 150 people that these are the regular people, the conversations that I'm having or doing business with, or so on and so on. And Gino Barbaro came on my podcast and said it. We look at investment in reading. We look at investment in networking events, meetings with people. We don't see those as an ROI when truly they are the only true ROI that exists on the information, the proximity to the person that you get, the proximity to a business mind. And we need to change the way we think about these investments. I'll tell you a true story. Matty A, I met him through DMs and he said, I got 15 minutes, figure it out. I'm in Texas, he's in Sacramento. I fly across the country to go meet him for 15 minutes. I've got more off that friendship and more connections and more knowledge off of a $250 plane ticket than if you went to college for 9 years and spent 150 grand. Same thing happened in Arizona when I went to one meetup, flew across the country. I met 7 people at a meetup on a Monday at 2 o'clock that I do business with or call friends. That was another $300 investment. But what happens is people walk into those events with a closed mind. Every day is an opportunity. There's an opportunity at Whole Foods to meet somebody and affect their life. There's an opportunity to walk in and show up, but we have to pick the energy that we show up to them in the right state of mind with.
That's so true. Like all the greatest things that have ever happened in the business, in my business anyways, they've never come because we planned them, right? They came because I was out there doing something. I was talking to somebody. I was meeting someone, whatever it may be. And sometimes you don't even notice it right away. Maybe somebody reaches out like 2 years later and they're like, oh yeah, I saw you do this and we met on this day, right? And then you just never know when it's going to come back around. So now it's harder to get out to events, obviously, but by doing things like this, and since COVID hit, that's where we upped our game, just going online. Now I have all these new relationships because we've met cool people like you, right? And it's forced us to change the way we connect with people. And it's actually made it easy and really efficient. And you don't even need to spend the $350 on the plane ticket or whatever it is anymore.
No,
right? So,
and I hope you're okay with it, because I've stole that line that you said on my podcast. My entire company lives by it, and my coaching clients. Nothing has happened to me that was planned. Like I said it 3 times yesterday. Like it's just because it's the truth. Because and I'll fast forward to today. I was working private equity, lending money to investors, got laid off in March, got divorced in April, moved across the country, a job that didn't work out. Now I'm moving back to Texas next week. None of these things when 2020 started did I think were going to happen. But if this COVID and this global pandemic or whatever you want to call it has taught us anything, is that we as humans, what we need is so minute to what we actually think that we need. You need fresh air to breathe, water to drink, your loved ones to care about you, and a roof over your head. You don't need the gym. I'm in the best shape of my life. I've been in 3 gyms in 6 months. Figure it out. But we make these excuses or these distractions to remove ourselves from the things that we actually need. And what I see as I travel around the United States, since I've been to like 20 states in the last 6 months, is I see more bikes being ridden than ever. I see kids at parks with their family. I see fathers that are actually present and not at work to be a father. So you can choose to look at any situation you want to. It's all perspective and the story that is created within our mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, that comes back to the inner side of things, right? So it's very, very true. So I hope that's sinking in for the people watching and listening to this. But we'll probably get back to it again. One thing I do want to get to on a little bit of the mechanics side, one of the things we were talking about is how money works before we hit record. And you're saying how few people actually understand, and in fact, that you're still learning about it as well, but how money works, what it's backed by, how the banks work, how the lending industries work. I'm curious. I want to know what you know, because this is something that's so important for everybody, not even just entrepreneurs, but understanding like why are interest rates so low or why do they go up or whatever it may be, is that this could be something that could save your business or your own financials if you understand how to make moves strategically.
Yeah, I mean, thank God I have a man in my life named Ryan Breedwell, who's a just killer financial advisor out of California. He has learned a lot from him. You have to understand that money at a binary level is a transaction on top of a transaction. So anytime you're getting money from a hard money lender, unless they have a privately funded from their own piggyback pocket, I guarantee you that lender borrowed money from somebody else at a smaller percent. And so what people have to understand is the domino effect to the money markets of COVID is about 9 layers deep, because your small potatoes hard money lender was getting money from a bigger fund that was getting money from probably the US government, to be honest with you, or the stock market, or companies that they raised money in private equity. And so when those markets, 3 companies back, squeeze up tight, the rates are going to be pushed up on this end so they can obtain the returns that they're looking for. And so I would tell everybody, and price wise, maybe it's not the best time, but the rates that we're seeing within the lending markets will never be this low again for the next 2.5 years, maybe a year and a half. So if I heard a quote and it changed my entire life. I was listening to Bigger Pockets. The guy, they asked him what his goal was for the next year. And this SOB said to go into $3 million worth of debt. I was like, what? He said, because money's never been so cheap. So I'm going to make sure I position that debt to obtain as much assets to generate as much cash flow as possible. We have systematically not paid attention to how, because what people, let me back up. When you make a salary and you get a promotion, great, you got a promotion. And guess what? The government takes a good percentage of that. And so it's great that you got a promotion, but as an investor and an entrepreneur, I don't care how much gross profit you have, because I've had companies that have tons of gross profit and we have no money in the bank. How much net profit do you actually make? And I would venture to guess that a large portion of an entrepreneurs don't know that number. Do you agree with or agree with me?
Oh, I agree for sure, because I was one of those people before.
Yeah.
Where we were just kind of spinning our wheels and we're like, what's happening? Right. So that was part of our business, carpenter starting a business, like, think we're making a lot of money. You get lots of checks and you're like, where to go?
This happened to us. We scaled the Airbnb business across 7 states, crushed it, felt like we were like, nobody was scaling up as quick as we were. And then you turn around when the dust settles and there's no money. There's no money. And I just had to restructure my business and let some people go and cut some expenses and get back to more to bootstrapping stuff, because I don't see the value. If there's the value is not there and the money that you're spending, you have to bring it back in house. And it's maybe not what you want to do. It's not what I want to do, but you have to look at, I always project my investing 5 years out because I don't have the big pockets. So I'm not going to roll up into Austin, Texas, which is probably the fastest growing market in America, and try to go buy a bunch of property. No, I'm going to go 30, 40 minutes away and try to slam myself right in the middle of the path of progress, in a smaller town, because it's sexier to do it in Austin, But if you pay attention you read the tea leaves, that's where you make the money.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys that you said there too is that the person you're listening to, he said that he was going to borrow money to get assets that will make him money, right? Mm-hmm. So as long as you're borrowing that money and it's going to make you more money than you're borrowing for, then it makes sense. But that's something you definitely need to keep an eye on, because it's easy to borrow money, but if you borrow it for the wrong things, then you could end up very far behind too.
If you're borrowing it, sorry guys, I apologize to whoever I offend. But if you're borrowing it to buy the $80,000 truck because it looks cool with your contractor magnet on the side of it, get your shit together. It don't matter. What matters is how profitable your business is, and it matters how many, if you see, here's the problem. We leverage ourselves to the hills and then we get backed in a corner. So we don't have the option to be the father, husband, or business owner that we want to be. Because the problem is people are building for a revenue ceiling instead of building for a lifestyle. If you could be at every one of your kids' soccer games and you made $85,000 a year, as long as your ego didn't get in the way and you were happy, who cares?
I love that. One of the things too that we were talking about too before was service for a business. And I think especially in this industry, so I find being in construction and being the young guy at the beginning too, is that when you don't understand your numbers, you don't charge enough, right? You think you're making too much and maybe you don't even know your numbers. So you get underbid by somebody and then you're like, well, maybe I should lower my price. Maybe my prices are too much. What I've realized is that we know our numbers now, but we feel good about making a profit because that means that we're going to be sticking around so that we can continue to provide service for all of our clients for years to come. That's one of the reasons we do this. It's like, look, we're online. We're not going anywhere. We plan on being here. Sure, you could probably find somebody or hire some project manager to do it for less than us, but is he going to be here next year? Right?
Dude,
I see you laughing.
This story just popped in my head and it's so great. And he will never watch this. And it's so cool because I'm going to paint a picture for you. His name is Valentin. He does the electricity for all my brother-in-law's houses down in San Antonio. He drives a Corvette. He wears nice boots. He's funny as shit. And this is the statement that he said to my face. He said, there's no chance in hell that I am the cheapest, but you sure as fuck ain't going to have to find me because I do what I say I'm going to do. And so if you're going to give the service and you're going to stand behind it, it's okay to charge more as long as you're following through with what you're doing. It's the other way around that gets people in trouble. This is not a short transactional business. Real estate is not that way. And the client has access to every bit of information these days that you do. So if you overbid them, true story, July, one of my properties, AC goes out. I call the company. Hey, it's going to be $9,100 for a new unit. Excuse me? It's going to be how much? No. No. Okay. Well, no, that's not going to work. So I call my brother-in-law. He said, call this guy. The guy said, I'll do it for $5,800. I'm like, oh, this is great. And so I called back those guys and I said, hey, I got this bid for $5,800. Well, hold on. Let me talk to my boss. We can do it for $5,000. He's like, oh, he just came down $4,000. I'm like, no, you know what you did. I was like, so now you just got your hand caught in the cookie jar and I know what I'm doing. So you can do it for $5,000, but I need it done like today. And he was like, all right. And so I got him. But to a layman that's not an investor or somebody that's flipped a house, this is what happens on a regular basis. So when you walk in as a contractor and let's say the customer or the client is standoffish, it has nothing to do with how you've shown up. Maybe you have to look at it from all angles. Maybe they got burned a couple times.
Well, there's no shortage of bad contractor stories out there, right? So
yeah. And so you have to have some compassion for the customer, and the more details, the more transparency that you have as an entrepreneur and why you're charging the price, then that customer can justify it. Because people have no problem paying for value as long as they can see it. It's when they can't see the value, they have a problem opening their checkbook.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we share everything with the projects that we do. It's like, here's our cost and we're putting our percentage on top of it, right? But this percentage covers a lot of things.
But because I came from hotels and because I came from hospitality so long, I always tell this story, and it's an easy story to wrap your head around. And it doesn't portray the contractor business, but it portrays the service. There's a guy, I heard a story. A family rented a property in Scottsdale for the summer, like they always do. And the guy was like, oh yeah, I have 2 kids. No big deal, right? So the guy who owns the house goes, well, you know what would be fun? What if for a month I rented him a bouncy castle and put it in the backyard for the kids? What, $2,000, $1,500? It just so finds out this guy is like CEO of like one of the biggest companies in the United States, rents the house out for 10 years straight, and then proceeds to give this guy like $1.5 million of business off of $2,000, right? So don't do the obvious things that everybody else is doing. Find ways to add value to your customers, to your clients, that maybe, if you walk in the house, right, and you see he's got a Buffalo Bills flag hanging up, maybe as a gift, you get him a jersey and say thank you and write him a note. And he's going to go tell 9 of his friends. Like, if you've got the referral business, we did a study in our private equity company of all the deals we closed, like somewhere north of like, $100 million for the year or something. Like 76% were from referrals.
Most of our work's the same.
You got them in the bag already,
Yeah.
They're already half yes. You just got to not mess it up.
Yeah. That's so true. And then the repeat clients too.
Yeah.
So what do you, is this what you work with your clients on? So you take on private clients now?
I do private coaching, mainly mindset stuff, mainly just leveling up their whole life. A couple of my clients were working on the health part of their relationship. For lack of a better word, because I've been through a divorce, a lot of stuff is getting the husband to be, more present, because I know sometimes I wasn't, and I'm working on that myself. And so you're just working on trying to create this mindset, because here's the thing, the obstacles in life will never cease. It's just that what we want to do is we want to prevent the spiral. And the spiral will get you in the wrong places. When one problem turns into 2 problems, turns into 3 problems, turns into 4 problems. And what
obstacles really are just a perceptive, however we see them, right? Some of us might not even see them as obstacles.
And what I used to do is one problem would combine into 5 to 6 to 7, and it would be a 3-week to month process. Now I have conditioned myself to get out of those feelings or in those moments in 30 minutes to an hour and a half. And that's what I'm trying to get. And more importantly, what I'm trying to do with my client is remove the goal-oriented score sheet that we have trained the society on, instead of and turning it around and removing the identity from the job and creating a lifestyle that you're comfortable with or you seek. And then it's not a diet. It's not a fad workout. This is just who you are. I had a great friend, him, Salvatore. He said, listen, you're not a recovering alcoholic anymore. You're a guy who doesn't drink. You're not a guy who works out a little bit. You're a healthy human. Like, we're switching the narrative from a short-term fix to an entirely lifestyle transformation.
Yeah. Those words, the words that we use, more importantly, the words that we use for ourselves are very powerful. Mm-hmm. And
we would never speak to other people the way we speak to ourselves.
So true.
So the initial work that I do is to change how we speak inside here. That's it. And understand that there's no ceilings in life, and you can do anything you want to do. We were all put on this earth for a special thing, but it starts right here.
So obviously anybody who's listening here, you can see whether you're in construction or not, Austin is talking about what I think is the most important thing, partly because we're part of all the same, we're part of the same group now. But mindset has been something I've been working so much on for the last 8 years. And Austin is out there helping. And I love, Austin, that you're coming from a place of experience. So not only have you learned this stuff and you're applying it and you're helping other people, but you're also coming from a place where like, look, I can understand you. I've been through this, right? So it'd be hard to find something that you haven't also been through.
So it's funny that you say this. I was having a conversation yesterday and dude, I've been to 50 psychiatrists, so I'm not bemoaning them. I like psychologists. I actually enjoy talking to them. But it's laughable to me that somebody that sat in an air-conditioned room and wore a cardigan and got a master's degree can talk to somebody about a cocaine or meth addiction sleeping in a effing closet, right? Like, oh, your shit was crazy? No. My shit was crazy too. Let's go down there and let's rebuild you, right? Because what we've done, what people don't see is the nights when I'm listening to Gary Vaynerchuk at 2:30 in the morning because I'm so down that I'm just in my head and he's just banging my head, and you're listening to these motivational things. And what you're realizing is that it's an overall fix on so much, right? And you're creating this unstoppable, relentless pursuit of true happiness and true movement to be the best father, husband, present human you can be. Dude, this world is super, super simple. The only thing that it asks from you every day when you wake up is for you to be the best version of yourself. If that is your pursuit, it permeates in every part of your life and will fix all the problems. The time that you stop worrying about money is the time it starts coming to you. The time that you actually communicate with your spouse is the time that she opens up and you allow her the space to be herself. The time that you decide that $5,000 job is not as important as seeing your son score a goal in soccer is when you start gaining the control in your life. It's just the truth. And it's taken so much bad stuff for me to get there. And I'm still not there. It's every day. It's a fight. But I know that I'm surrounded by to bring it all back to your point, surrounded by the right people that allow me to see the good in myself and allow me not to go down there again.
Love it. What's your routine look like these days now? Because you're kind of I know you're moving back, so your routine's probably all out of wax, but in a usual day.
Typically 5 a.m., 4:30, 5:30, depending on how late we were driving the night before. I try to do a workout, a meditation. I'm going to get back on the meditation train when I get actually to a place that I'm like standardized for a little bit. I like to, read a little bit in the morning, but then I'm working. Is this something I'm working on with my assistant is like this day, especially as an entrepreneur, right? And maybe you have some semblance of this, is like, it's really your decision on what your day looks like. Meaning that, like, I try not to take a meeting after 4:30 because, like, I've been up for so long, like, my brain's kind of like, I'm good. And then, like, what I want to do too is, like, I don't take anything on Friday. Like, Friday's like an open day. If I want to work, that's fine. If not, because the efficiency of the day is really what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And thank God, AAA Adams, forever thank him, is my schedule was all over the place. Like coaching calls on Monday, podcast on Tuesdays, podcast on Wednesdays, Saturdays. And he goes, no, you can't do this. So Wednesday is podcast day, Tuesday's coaching day, and the rest of the week is for the business. And what it allows you to do, and I'll do 7 podcasts in a day, but you're so in the same mind frame that you're just rolling through instead of popping from business to business. I've heard from entrepreneurs that have multiple businesses, they section off days for certain businesses. Mm-hmm. So they're not popping back and forth to the business.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Because we think that we can multitask, but we can't. Our mind can only focus on one thing at once, and it takes you need that time to like shift gears, right? So
Yeah, you have to. And the thing is, is that you as an entrepreneur set the boundaries on what customers can do or say or don't for you. And dude, this was the this was the hardest thing ever, because by you not setting boundaries, you're operating from a place of scarcity, and you're letting the world know that your time doesn't matter, and then you're shutting yourself off to abundance. When you flip the switch and it's abundant, okay, I didn't get that deal, no big deal, there'll be more coming, but I protected the time for my family. And you know what, that's easier said than done when you're getting started out. I get it, but you're laying the groundwork for later on, and just be cognizant of it at least, right?
yeah, be aware. Like I think it's what I realized too is that you alluded to it. Friday was somewhat of a write-off sometimes, anyways, because of efficiency. If you know when you're efficient, make sure you plan to do your most important things during those times. I know that I'm more efficient in the mornings, so I actually do my calls in the afternoons where I can, because I'm like, no, I can focus and get more done in the morning. I'm good to have conversations and phone calls with people in the afternoons, but I still
I'm
have
this
like
yeah,
Thursdays. I'm like, no
I'm the
meeting.
same way, man. The morning I'm locked in. You try to talk to me after, like, you want me to do some paperwork after like 2:30, I'm like, no, I'm done. Bye.
Well,
But more importantly, and something we talked about on our podcast that I don't want to let slide by, the greatest skill that exists as an entrepreneur is self-awareness. Rocket Fuel, one of the best books ever, and especially if you have multiple people in your business, you have to understand. Look, guys, if you put taxes or a spreadsheet in front of me, I will be in the corner crying. It's not what I do. But I guarantee you, I know more people and have a bigger Rolodex than most, because that's what I operate in. And so I had to go out and seek and find business partners and people that work for me that love to do scheduling systems. And they're really good at it. And it makes me operate in the highest form of myself, that allows me to not feel weighted down. And I feel like an eagle flying, because I'm only doing the tasks that are best suited for me.
yeah. And it takes some time to get there, right? So be patient with yourself and work with people like Austin. They'll help get you there too. You actually answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you what books you'd recommend. So Rocket Fuel.
So Rocket Fuel, Atomic Habits, Game Changer. But I tell you what, man, a little book maybe not everybody knows about. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And
With
it
this
is
elimination of what? Sorry.
hurry. And it's a little from the church. He's a priest. But it applies to entrepreneurship in general. And basically what he's saying is you have to create boundaries so you can operate in the highest form of who you are as a person. And it's taken me, by the way, side note, Rich Dad, Poor Dad changed my life. But I think most entrepreneurs and real estate agents, if you haven't read it, you have to read it. You can't work for me and not have read it. That's just bar none. It's the basics. So amazing book. But it's basically telling you that we as a society think that more is better, and we show up to things not in the right energy sometimes, or not involved. And I've had to teach myself, if I'm not feeling it or I'm not in the right headspace, to just push the call. Like, and it sucks, but like, you're basically saying, like, I want to make sure that I show up for you in the best form for myself. And then you're not half-assing it. You're not, you're allowing yourself. I was talking to a guy, he gives himself 2 hours of creative thinking a day, and that's either reading or whiteboarding or something. Like, who does that? Like, who allows themselves? No, instead they schedule 15 meetings in one day, and then they come home and they're white as a ghost, and they don't even know what happened, and it's hard, right? Because we're all struggling right now with finances and money. But the deeper meaning is taking that time and being methodical and intentional with your time.
What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to touch base?
So,
or hire you or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I'll just give my cell phone number, 512-529-7515. You can find me on Facebook, Austin Linney. Type it in. You can DM me on Instagram. I'll reply to you. Austin Linney as well. The podcast is called Construct Your Life. Casey will be out next Monday. I'm reading the book you recommended. The yoga book, great book as well. So good stuff.
You gave me 4 books that I'm going to have to read now. So
yeah, the Atomic Habits is it's great. So Rocket Fuel, he actually wrote the first book called Traction, but you can just read Rocket Fuel.
I actually started Traction. I remember it, but I didn't.
It's wordy. It's wordy. Yeah. It's wordy. Oh, okay. You know what? I got a book especially for your audience that will. Now, don't get me wrong. It's meaty and kind of high level, but it changes the way you do business. Called Profit First. If you haven't read it, it will change your entire business. It will take everything. The way that you bring in money. It will simplify how you pull apart net profits, and it'll really allow you to operate business from a place of feeling more comfortable about your bookkeeping.
All those spreadsheets that you love doing so much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Well, Austin, thanks so much for being on the show. As always, I always learn a ton talking to you. So I'm sure like everything that we apply, like everyone that's been listening, yes, we've been talking a lot about entrepreneurship, but a lot of what makes us successful in entrepreneurship is what makes us successful in life as well. And Austin has no shortage of experiences and wisdom to share, if you can tell. So check out his podcast as well. And once again, thanks so much, Austin.
You got it, my man. Thank you so much, Mr. Gray.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Conscious Builder Show. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe because we have a lot of exciting projects coming up, including our first official series, The 3-Day Cottage.